There is a quiet courage in the morning, before the world remembers its worries, before doubt finds its voice, that whispers to the soul, "Rise anyway." And on this Thursday, April 9th, we gather not as people who have everything figured out, but as believers standing on the fragile, faithful ground of hope. We come carrying yesterday's questions, last night's tears, and the silent prayers we dared not speak aloud. Yet even here, even now, there is a truth rising like the sun. Oh yes, God can. God can step into the rooms we have closed with disappointment and fling open windows we never knew existed. God can take the fragments of our waiting and shape them into a testimony that sings louder than our fears. For we are not abandoned to chance. We are held by a promise, one that does not tremble when life shakes us. This morning is not ordinary, it is a threshold. It is a holy invitation to believe that the unexpected is not always to be feared. Sometimes it is the very language of God's blessings. So let us breathe deeply of this new dawn. Let us loosen the grip of yesterday's limitations and dare to expect something greater. For the same God who parted seas, who lifted the lowly, who turned mourning into dancing, is still writing stories, your story, with ink that never runs dry. And today, beloved, we stand ready at the door, not knowing how it will open, but trusting with every fiber of our being that it will. There is something sacred about the morning that no storm of yesterday can fully erase. It arrives gentle yet unyielding, like a quiet promise whispered across the horizon, reminding us that endings are never as final as they once seemed in the dark. Morning does not ask permission to come. It simply arrives, draped in light, carrying with it a mercy so fresh that even the most wounded heart can feel its touch and begin again. And so we rise, not always strong, not always certain, but willing to believe that this day holds more than what our fears predict, willing to trust that God has already stepped ahead of us into the hours we have yet to meet. Morning faith is not the loud declaration of someone who has never known hardship. It is the quiet, trembling yes of a soul that has seen difficulty and chooses hope anyway. You see, faith in the morning is different. It does not shout to be seen. It does not parade itself in perfection. It often comes wrapped in fragile courage, standing at the edge of doubt and daring to lean forward. It is the mother who wakes before her children, whispering prayers over a day she cannot control. It is the weary worker who dresses in persistence, though yesterday offered no reward. It is the heart that has been broken yet still beats with expectation, believing that healing is not only possible but already on its way. Morning faith says, I do not have all the answers, but I trust the one who does. It is a surrender, yes, but not a defeat. It is the laying down of burdens that were never ours to carry alone. And in that surrender there is strength, deep, unshakable strength that does not depend on circumstances but rests in the character of God. There are mornings when the light feels heavy, when it presses against the eyelids of a tired spirit, asking it to rise when it would rather remain hidden. Those are the mornings when faith matters most. Not the easy mornings, when joy comes naturally and gratitude flows without effort, but the difficult ones, the mornings after loss, after disappointment, after prayers that seem to echo without reply. It is there, in that tender space between despair and decision, that morning faith is born anew. And it speaks softly at first, then stronger. Try again, trust again, believe again. For every sunrise carries a message written in gold across the sky. That darkness, no matter how deep, is never permanent. It must give way. It must bow to the arrival of light. And if the sky can trust in its turning, if the earth can rely on its rhythm, then surely we too can trust in the faithfulness of God. Morning faith does not deny reality. It transforms how we stand within it. It acknowledges the bills, the brokenness, the unanswered questions, but it refuses to let them have the final word. Instead, it lifts its eyes beyond what is seen and anchors itself in what is promised. It declares there is more to this story than what I feel in this moment. And oh, what a powerful declaration that is. Because when we choose faith in the morning, we are not just shaping our day, we are shaping our destiny. We are aligning our hearts with the truth that has outlived every storm, that God is still at work even when we cannot see his hands moving, that blessings are still being prepared even when our circumstances seem barren, that doors are still being opened even when we feel surrounded by walls. Morning faith is the seed planted in the soil of trust. It may begin small, barely noticeable, but given time, it grows. It stretches toward the light. It takes root in the unseen and blossoms into a confidence that cannot be easily shaken. And soon what began as a whisper becomes a song of resilience, of hope, of unwavering belief. There is a rhythm to it, this rising in faith, a sacred routine of waking, breathing, praying, believing. It is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is as simple as placing your feet on the floor and saying, "Thank you, God, for another day." Sometimes it is closing your eyes for a moment longer and choosing gratitude over grief. Sometimes it is stepping forward when everything inside you wants to retreat. But every act, no matter how small, is an act of faith. And every act of faith invites God to move in ways we cannot predict. You may not see it immediately. The door may not open the moment you knock. The blessing may not arrive the moment you ask. But morning faith is not about instant results. It is about enduring trust. It is about believing that even in the waiting, something is happening, something is shifting, something is being prepared. And one day you will look back and realize that those quiet mornings, those moments when you chose faith over fear, were the very foundation of your breakthrough. So rise, beloved. Rise with your questions, your doubts, your hopes, and your dreams. Rise not because everything is perfect, but because God is present. Rise knowing that this day, like every day, is filled with possibilities that have your name written on them. Let your heart be open to the unexpected. Let your spirit be ready for the doors that will appear where there once were none. Let your faith be bigger than your fear, louder than your doubt, stronger than your past. For the morning is not just a time of day, it is a divine invitation. An invitation to trust again, to hope again, to believe again. And when you accept that invitation, when you step into the light with faith as your guide, you will discover something extraordinary, that God has been waiting for you there all along, ready to meet you with blessings you did not see coming, and doors you did not know could open. Oh yes. This is the power of morning faith. There is a rhythm in life, a cadence that hums quietly beneath our knowing, a pulse that beats beyond our comprehension, and sometimes in our human eyes and hurried hearts we cannot see it. We plan, we measure, we anticipate. We set our hopes upon a schedule, thinking that if we pray hard enough, if we strive long enough, if we believe deeply enough, God will show up exactly as we imagined. But beloved, God's ways are higher, and his thoughts surpass even our most brilliant expectations. He does not work within the narrow lines we draw. He moves in the vastness, in the extraordinary spaces between our longing and our grasp. There is a sacred freedom in understanding this truth. It is the freedom that whispers, "I am not bound by your understanding, and your plans are not the limits of my power." God works beyond expectations. He writes stories that defy our foresight, paints blessings in colors we cannot name, and opens doors where walls once loomed. When we confine the Almighty to our human timelines, we miss the miraculous that waits just beyond the horizon of our comprehension. I want you to hear me. Your God is not limited by your imagining. He is not constrained by what you believe you can receive. He does not work according to the calendar of your impatience. No, he works in ways that astonish, ways that surprise, ways that transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. There are blessings that arrive not with a whisper but with a thunderclap. There are opportunities that appear not where we expect them but in places we never dreamed. There are answers to prayers that are more beautiful, more complete, more abundant than we could have even dared ask for. Think of the seed, how it lies hidden beneath the soil. It seems inert, forgotten, buried beneath darkness, and yet in that unseen place a miracle is taking place. The roots stretch quietly, the shoot presses upward, and then one day it breaks through the surface, reaching for the sun. This is how God works. Often He works beneath the surface, hidden from our view, shaping our lives in ways we cannot witness in real time. The miracle is happening even when it seems as though nothing is happening at all. Too often we are tempted to define God's work according to our own parameters. We want Him to bless us in ways we understand, in moments we have planned. But that is not how a sovereign God operates. The divine moves with infinite wisdom, orchestrating details beyond the edge of our vision. He knows what we need before we ask, sees what we cannot see, and prepares what we could not imagine. And when the blessing finally arrives, it does so with a depth and a power that reminds us that the Almighty has always been ahead of us. God works beyond expectations because His understanding is infinite and ours is finite. His vision encompasses the full spectrum of time and possibility, while ours is limited to the narrow lens of today, the boundaries of our human perception. What we see as delay, He sees as preparation. What we interpret as disappointment, He transforms into an invitation for deeper trust. What we regard as impossibility, He redeems into the miraculous. Consider the story of those who waited and saw beyond their own understanding. Abraham and Sarah, told they would have a child in their old age, waited. They could not have imagined how laughter and life would spring forth from what seemed impossible. Joseph, sold and forgotten in a pit, exiled and imprisoned, could not have envisioned the throne that awaited him, yet God's plan was always unfolding beyond what they could see, beyond what they could expect. And so it is with us today. The blessings of God may not arrive according to our timetable, but they will arrive in a way that surpasses our expectations, fulfilling promises that we could never have scripted on our own. We must learn to embrace the unexpected as part of the divine narrative, to accept that sometimes God's answers are not the ones we envisioned, but they are exactly the ones we need, that the paths He opens may not be straight, but they lead to abundant life, that the opportunities He provides may not align with our plans, but they align perfectly with His purpose. To follow God is to walk a road that often surprises, challenges, and transforms us, teaching us that our human imagination is but a drop in the ocean of His infinite creativity. And so, when life seems to twist in ways we do not understand, when prayers seem unanswered, when hopes appear delayed, remember this: God is working beyond your expectations. Do not despair at what seems hidden, for it is there that the miracle is being nurtured. Do not measure His goodness by the timing of your heart, for His timing is perfect. Do not limit His provision by the limits of your mind, for His blessings are abundant and overflowing. Faith is the key that unlocks our ability to receive the extraordinary. It is the posture of the heart that says, I may not understand, but I will trust. I may not see, but I will believe. I may not know the way, but I will follow. Faith does not demand that God conforms to our expectations. Faith opens our lives to the vast, breathtaking expanse of His possibilities. Faith allows us to receive what is greater than we imagined, richer than we hoped, and more beautiful than we dreamed. We are often like children, peering through the fence, expecting the world to fit neatly into our understanding. But the Almighty does not work like a child. He moves like the ocean, powerful, deep, and uncontainable. He turns what is ordinary into something extraordinary. He brings light into darkness that seems endless. He transforms scarcity into abundance, and He takes what we thought was impossible and makes it a testament of His glory. Beloved, do not be afraid of the unexpected. Do not reject the blessings that arrive in forms you do not recognize. Do not despair when the doors open in places you did not plan to go. For God works beyond expectations, and His creativity is boundless. He knows how to multiply what seems insufficient. He knows how to make a way when there is no way. He knows how to take the fragments of our efforts and our prayers and craft them into a masterpiece far beyond our understanding. When you pray, pray with openness. When you hope, hope with courage. When you wait, wait with patience. And when the blessing comes, whether as a whisper or a roar, receive it with a heart ready to marvel at the mystery of a God who works beyond expectations. Your life is a canvas, and God is the artist. Do not limit his brushstroke to what you think it should be. Do not demand that he color within the lines of your imagination. Allow him to paint in brilliance, in surprise, in unexpected beauty. Trust that the picture he creates is more magnificent than you could ever envision. God works beyond expectations, and when you learn to rest in that truth, your heart will expand. You will find peace in waiting. You will find courage in uncertainty. You will find joy in the blessings that come not on your schedule, but in the fullness of his divine orchestration. So rise this morning with hope that transcends your understanding. Open your hands to receive the gifts you cannot yet see. Step through the doors that appear when you least expect them. Walk boldly in the path that God has prepared, knowing that he is always at work, always creating, always blessing beyond what you thought possible. Oh yes, beloved, God works beyond expectations. And in that truth lies a freedom, a wonder, and a joy that can carry you through every day of your life. There comes a time in every human heart when we must face a truth both tender and terrifying, that the chains we carry are often the chains we have fashioned ourselves. They are the echoes of yesterday, the shadows of mistakes, the memories of doors closed and dreams deferred. They are the weight of what was said and unsaid, the heaviness of all that could have been, and the haunting of all that never came to pass. And yet there is a freedom that waits beyond those chains, a life that begins the moment we dare to loosen our grip. To step forward, beloved, is to let go of past limitations. Letting go is not a one-time act. It is a process, a journey of the Spirit that asks us to confront our fears, our failures, and our doubts with courage that sometimes trembles but never abandons. It is the quiet voice inside that says, you do not have to carry this anymore. You do not have to be bound by what has been. There is something more waiting for you. And when we listen, when we truly hear that call, our hearts begin to unfold, one careful, brave step at a time. We cling to the past because it is familiar, because it feels safer to hold what we know than to trust what we cannot see. We cling to old failures, old regrets, old pains, thinking that they define us, that they shape the boundaries of who we are allowed to be. But oh, beloved, the past is not the ruler of your destiny. It is not the sentence of your life. It is the teacher, the witness, the one who whispers lessons to the soul if only we are willing to learn. To let go of past limitations is to recognize that you are more than the sum of your yesterdays. You are more than the doors that closed. You are more than the voices that said you could not. You are more than the disappointments, the betrayals, the losses that have shaped the landscape of your experience. And in that recognition there is a power that rises quietly but with unstoppable force. The power to say, I will not let my history dictate my future. I will not allow yesterday to cage me. Consider the river, how it flows. It does not linger on the stones it has passed, nor does it mourn the currents that carried it through rapids and obstacles. It moves forward, unceasing, carving its way with persistence and grace. So too must we learn to move, to release, to allow the waters of life to carry us toward what is yet to come. Letting go is the river within us, washing away the sediment of limitation, polishing our hearts, opening channels where life can flow freely once again. Letting go of past limitations is also an act of courage. It asks us to stand before ourselves and acknowledge the ways in which we have believed lies about our worth, our ability, our destiny. It asks us to face the truth that some of the barriers we have carried were never real. They were illusions, born of fear and misunderstanding, waiting for us to name them and cast them aside. And when we do, when we truly let go, we find ourselves unburdened, soaring on a faith that knows no restraint. There is a spiritual dimension to letting go. It is an act of trust, a surrender that says, God, I cannot carry this weight alone, and I release it to you. And in that surrender, something miraculous occurs. The burdens that once seemed immovable begin to lift. The doors that once seemed sealed begin to open. The blessings that were waiting for space to enter now find their way into our lives. For God does not bless the heart that clings to limitation. He blesses the one that has prepared room for possibility. We must also recognize that letting go does not mean forgetting. It does not mean erasing the past or pretending the struggles never happened. It means acknowledging the lessons learned, the strength gained, the resilience built, and then stepping forward with a heart unencumbered. It is the difference between carrying a wound as a chain and carrying it as a scar that tells a story of survival and growth. The scar reminds us of where we have been, but does not define where we are going. Think of the bird imprisoned in a cage of its own making, its wings folded because it believes the world beyond is too vast, too dangerous. And then imagine the courage it takes to open that cage, to stretch its wings, to rise into the sky, trusting in the wind it has not yet felt. That bird is you, beloved. The cage is the past, the fear, the limitation. The sky is the life that waits when you choose to let go. And oh, the heights you can reach when you dare to trust. Letting go is also an act of love. For yourself, for your future, for the possibilities that lie ahead. It is saying to your soul, I deserve to be free. I deserve to be whole. I deserve to walk into the life that God has prepared for me without the weight of old chains. And in that act of love, the heart expands, the spirit rises, the mind sees beyond the horizon of yesterday, and the soul steps into the abundant light of now. There will be days when the past calls you back, when memories rise like shadows at the edge of consciousness, whispering fear and doubt. It is human to feel their pull, but the difference lies in how you respond. You can let the pull of limitation dictate your steps, or you can acknowledge it, breathe through it, and move forward anyway. Letting go is not weakness, it is strength. It is choosing faith over fear, hope over despair, and freedom over bondage. And the beauty of letting go is that it is never too late. No matter how long you have carried the weight, no matter how deeply the chains have embedded themselves, there is always a moment when you can release them. There is always a day when you can step into the sunlight of possibility, when you can allow your heart to expand beyond what you thought was possible, when you can embrace the gifts that have been waiting for you all along. Beloved, the past does not define you, and your limitations do not dictate your potential. God's plan for your life is greater than any obstacle you have faced. His power is stronger than any chain you have carried. His love is broader than any wound that has ever touched your heart. And when you let go, when you truly release, you will find that the life you long for has been waiting, ready to pour into your open hands, ready to fill your unburdened heart, ready to bless you in ways that surprise, astonish, and delight. So rise today with courage, step into the light with faith. Release the weight of what no longer serves you. Forgive yourself for the mistakes, forgive others for the pain, and let the past fall behind like leaves carried away by the river of God's grace. Walk boldly into your future, knowing that the limits you once believed in were never real. They were only temporary fences erected by fear. And now, with the power of God and the strength of your own courageous heart, you can step beyond them. Oh, beloved, there is freedom on the other side of letting go. There is joy, there is peace, there is a life unbound, unshackled, and ready to receive the blessings that God has always intended for you. Let go of past limitations and watch how the doors of heaven open wide, how unexpected miracles unfold, and how your spirit rises like the morning sun, bright, uncontainable, and full of promise. There is a rhythm to the universe, a cadence that hums beneath the surface of all things, a timing so perfect that even the most hurried heart cannot rush it. And yet we try, we push, we pull, we demand that life, love, and blessings arrive according to our own calendars. We knock on doors, and when they remain closed, we grow impatient. We pray, and when answers do not come immediately, we question. But, beloved, there is a divine clock, a sacred sequence that is measured not by the minutes we count, but by the wisdom of God, who sees the beginning, the middle, and the end. To trust in divine timing is to surrender our need for control and to rest in the assurance that God's schedule is always perfect. Trusting in divine timing requires patience, a patience that stretches deep into the marrow of our bones. It asks us to wait not passively but actively, with faith alive and breathing, with hope held high, with hearts that are prepared to receive what is coming, even if we do not yet know its shape. It is a surrender that whispers, "I do not understand, but I trust. I cannot see the path ahead, but I will walk it." And in that surrender, beloved, there is power. There is a strength that no obstacle can diminish, a courage that no delay can extinguish, a hope that rises eternal even when the world seems still. There will be mornings when you feel that the universe has forgotten you, when doors remain shut and prayers appear unanswered. It is in those moments that trusting in divine timing becomes not only an act of faith, but an act of survival. For God is always moving, even when we cannot perceive it. Even when the world seems silent, His hand is at work, shaping, preparing, orchestrating details that we cannot yet see. He is never late. He is always right on time, and His timing is measured in eternity, not in the narrowness of our human expectation. Consider the seasons, how they unfold. The seed does not push itself into the earth before it is ready. The flower does not bloom before the warmth arrives. The harvest does not come before the rain has nourished the soil. Each season has its appointed time, and each season serves a purpose. So too must we learn to align our hearts with God's seasons. There is a time to plant, a time to water, a time to rest, and a time to harvest. And when we honor the timing, when we wait with trust, the blessings arrive in fullness, ripe and ready to be received. Trusting in divine timing also means embracing the unknown with courage. It is the willingness to step forward without knowing exactly what awaits. To move in faith even when the doors are closed, to keep walking because we believe that God is already working the path ahead. It is a dance of patience and expectation, a delicate balance between action and surrender. And in that dance we discover that timing is not just about waiting. It is about preparing, growing, and becoming the person who is ready when the blessing arrives. There is a story in Scripture and in life about Joseph, the man who was sold into slavery, thrown into prison, and forgotten by time itself. And yet in every delay, in every trial, in every moment that seemed hopeless, God was at work, preparing Joseph for a throne he could not have imagined, for a purpose far greater than his suffering. His timing was divine, beyond human understanding, and when the appointed hour came, the doors opened wide, revealing a destiny that had been waiting all along. Oh, beloved, how often we forget that our struggles are not signs of abandonment, but instruments of preparation. How often we mistake delay for denial, when in truth God is crafting something extraordinary behind the scenes. How often we grow anxious because we cannot see the plan, forgetting that the God who orchestrates galaxies and counts the hairs on our heads knows exactly when and how to bless us. Trusting in divine timing is also a practice of humility. It reminds us that we are not the architects of every detail in our lives, that our understanding is limited, our vision incomplete. And when we embrace that humility, when we step aside and allow God to move according to His wisdom, we free ourselves from the exhausting burden of trying to control everything. We learn to walk lightly, to breathe deeply, to live fully in the present while trusting in the promises of the future. There is beauty in the waiting if we choose to see it. There is growth in the pause, wisdom in the delay, and strength in the patience that stretches our hearts. For when the blessing arrives, it is more than just a gift. It is a testimony, a reminder that God's timing is perfect, that He knows what we need when we need it, and that His ways are far higher than our ways. The delay makes the arrival sweeter, the preparation makes the blessing more meaningful, and the faithfulness it cultivates makes our hearts ready to receive all that God has prepared. We must also remember that divine timing often defies human logic. It may not follow the order we expect. It may come in forms we do not recognize. It may appear in doors we never thought to knock on. And yet every moment, every detail, every event is woven together in a tapestry of perfection that only God can design. To trust in divine timing is to trust that even the detours, even the setbacks, even the moments of confusion are all part of a greater plan that is unfolding exactly as it should. Beloved, when you pray, pray with trust in the timing of heaven. When you hope, hope without impatience. When you wait, wait with a heart that is open, a spirit that is prepared, and a faith that does not waver. For God's timing is not delayed. It is intentional, precise, and beautiful beyond our understanding. And when the doors open, when the blessing arrives, when the answer comes, it will be more perfect, more abundant, more miraculous than we could have ever imagined. There is a freedom in surrendering to divine timing. It is the freedom that allows us to let go of worry, to release anxiety, to step out of fear. It is the freedom that allows us to live fully in the present while trusting the future to God. It is the freedom that allows us to dance, to sing, to rejoice, knowing that our lives are in the hands of one who is faithful, one who is wise, one who never misses a moment and never moves too late. Trusting in divine timing is not easy, beloved. It asks patience in the face of uncertainty, courage in the shadow of delay, and faith when the world whispers doubt. But oh, the reward is greater than we can imagine. For when we align ourselves with God's perfect timing, we find that every prayer is answered, every hope fulfilled, every door opened in its appointed hour. And we realize that the waiting, the preparation, the journey itself was a gift, a sacred, necessary part of the story that leads to the blessing we were always meant to receive. So rise this morning with patience, beloved. Step into the day with faith. Walk forward with trust that every moment is part of a divine plan, that every delay has purpose, that every pause is preparation. Open your heart to the timing of God, knowing that He is never late, never early, and always, always right on time. Oh yes, beloved, trust in divine timing, for in that trust lies peace, strength, and the joy of seeing God's perfect plan unfold, moment by moment, in a life that is richer, fuller, and more blessed than we could ever hope to imagine. There is a sacred whisper in life, a voice that calls softly but persistently, urging us to notice the paths that stretch before us. Some are hidden in plain sight, draped in subtle light that catches only the attentive eye. Some appear as sudden opportunities, doors that swing open with ease, as if the universe itself conspires to invite us in. But too often, beloved, we fail to recognize these open doors. We are distracted by fear, blinded by doubt, or weighed down by the residue of yesterday's disappointments. And yet God's hand is always at work, arranging circumstances, aligning hearts, preparing spaces where His blessings can enter. To recognize open doors is to awaken to the divine choreography of life, to see the moments where heaven meets earth, and to step boldly into the opportunities prepared for us. Recognizing open doors requires awareness, a sacred attentiveness to the movement of God in our lives. It asks us to be present, to listen deeply, and to observe the signs and invitations that surround us. For open doors are not always grand or loud. Sometimes they come quietly, disguised as a conversation, a change in circumstance, a new path that seems small, even insignificant, until we step through and discover the life-transforming possibilities on the other side. To see them, we must cultivate eyes that are attuned to God's subtle work, and hearts that are sensitive to His guidance. Too often, we wait for dramatic signs or extraordinary miracles, believing that an open door must announce itself with fanfare. And yet, beloved, the most profound opportunities are often whispered in silence. They arrive as chance encounters with people who change our trajectory, as invitations to places that feel unfamiliar, as tasks that stretch us beyond our comfort zones. If we are too rigid, too skeptical, too focused on our expectations, we may fail to step through and miss the blessings that were waiting for us all along. There is also courage in recognizing open doors. For the moment a door appears, it asks something of us. It asks us to move, to leave the familiar behind, to trust in what we cannot yet see. It asks us to step into uncertainty with faith as our guide, believing that God has prepared the way. And this courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward in spite of it. It is the heart saying, I may not know what lies ahead, but I will walk through anyway, trusting in God's hand to lead me. Recognizing open doors is intertwined with discernment. It is not enough to see a door swinging in the wind. We must understand which doors are from God and which are distractions from our purpose. This discernment comes from prayer, reflection, and attentiveness to the nudges of the Spirit. God's doors lead to growth, blessing, and alignment with His divine plan. False doors may glitter and tempt, but they lack the sustaining power of the paths He prepares. To walk through the right door is to step into destiny. To hesitate too long or walk blindly is to risk missing the divine opportunity. Open doors are often preceded by seasons of preparation. They appear after trials that stretch us, after patience that refines us, after lessons that teach resilience. They may seem sudden, but they are always the product of unseen work. God does not open doors without reason. He opens them when the timing is right, when our hearts are ready, and when the space is prepared to receive the blessings He intends. And so recognizing an open door is also a recognition of God's faithfulness, a sign that the journey we have walked has led to this appointed moment. There are open doors in relationships, in careers, in spiritual growth, in opportunities to serve, and in moments of self-discovery. They may not always be the doors we imagine, but they are precisely the ones that will shape our lives for the better. The invitation may come in the form of a new friendship, a change in job, a call to ministry, a chance to forgive, or an opportunity to embrace our gifts in service to others. Each door has the potential to transform us if we recognize it and step through with faith. Beloved, recognizing open doors also requires humility. It asks us to let go of pride and self-reliance, to acknowledge that the blessings before us are not always the product of our efforts alone. Sometimes God arranges circumstances, aligns people, and opens pathways that we could not have created on our own. To see these doors is to give thanks for divine orchestration, to step through with gratitude, and to trust that the path ahead is designed for our growth and purpose. And yet there is also an element of readiness. Open doors will not benefit the unprepared heart. They require us to walk with integrity, courage, and faith. They call for readiness to embrace change, to risk comfort for growth, and to act boldly when opportunity presents itself. When we recognize an open door and hesitate out of fear or doubt, we may stall the very blessings that God intends for us. But when we step forward with confidence, even trembling, we find that the door leads exactly where we need to go. Sometimes the doors are not easy. They may challenge us, stretch us, or confront the parts of ourselves we have hidden or neglected. They may demand sacrifices, choices, or risks that we would rather avoid. But these are often the doors most worth entering. For God does not prepare paths that are without purpose. Every challenge, every stretching moment, every difficult step is part of the shaping process, molding us into the people who are ready to receive the fullness of His blessing. There is also a beauty in the timing of open doors. They often appear at the precise moment we are ready to walk through them. Too early and we might stumble, too late and we might miss the alignment of blessings. But in God's perfect timing, the door appears, wide and welcoming, and all that is required is faith and willingness. To recognize it is to see beyond circumstance, to trust in divine orchestration, and to act decisively when opportunity presents itself. Beloved, do not be afraid to walk through the doors that God opens. Do not hesitate out of doubt, fear, or past failures. Do not ignore the subtle invitations of grace because they do not appear as grandly as you imagined. Open doors are sacred opportunities, gateways to growth, blessing, and purpose. They are the moments when heaven touches earth, when divine provision meets human willingness, and when the life you have been longing for begins to unfold. When you recognize an open door, step through it with faith. Walk boldly, trusting that God has prepared the way, that He goes before you, and that He will sustain you on the path ahead. Give thanks for the opportunity, embrace the journey, and remain attentive to the ways He continues to work in your life beyond the doorway. And remember this, beloved, every door that God opens is a reflection of His love, His wisdom, and His perfect plan. To recognize it is to honor the divine timing, the divine preparation, and the divine calling on your life. It is to walk in alignment with His purpose, to embrace the blessings He has prepared, and to step into a future filled with promise, hope, and possibility. Oh yes, recognize the open doors, for they are not accidental. They are the hand of God reaching toward you, inviting you to step forward, to grow, to receive, and to live in the fullness of His blessings. And when you do, you will discover a life richer, brighter, and more extraordinary than you ever dared imagine. There is a fire that burns quietly in the heart of the soul, a flame that dares to rise even when the winds of doubt howl around it. That fire is the spirit of bold expectation, the courage to look at life and say, I believe in more than what I see. I trust in what has not yet arrived. Living with bold expectation is not a timid hope. It is not a wish whispered in the dark. It is a declaration of faith, a commitment to believe in the unseen, a refusal to be limited by circumstance, fear, or the narrow confines of ordinary thinking. To live with bold expectation is to greet each morning with anticipation, as if the day itself were a gift delivered just for you. It is to rise with the knowledge that your steps are guided, your needs are known, and your blessings are already being arranged. It is the posture of the soul that refuses to shrink, that refuses to accept less than what God has promised, and that walks in confidence even when the evidence seems small. Bold expectation requires courage, for to expect great things is to risk disappointment, to risk being misunderstood, to risk venturing beyond comfort and familiarity. Yet it is precisely that courage that God honors, that God blesses, that God uses to move mountains in your life. For He is a God who delights in the bold, who fills the expectant with surprises, who opens doors to those ready to step through with faith. Living with bold expectation begins in the mind. It is the decision to align thought with possibility, to reject the voice of doubt that says, you are not ready, you cannot do this, it is impossible. Instead, the expectant heart listens to the whisper of God. I am with you. I have prepared this for you. Walk forward and receive. And as the mind believes it, the spirit strengthens, and the body becomes a vessel for the miracles that await. There is a sacred power in anticipation. It is a force that shapes reality, that draws opportunity and favor, that positions the believer to recognize and embrace what God has prepared. Bold expectation is not passive, it is active. It moves, it prays, it hopes, it reaches out. It steps forward with confidence. It sees the door before it opens and begins to move toward it. It senses the blessing in the distance and walks faithfully into alignment with its arrival. Living with bold expectation is also an act of defiance against the limitations of the world. It refuses to be swayed by statistics, circumstances, or the opinions of those who cannot see beyond what is visible. It is a refusal to settle for mediocrity when greatness is promised. It is the refusal to believe that the ordinary defines your life when God has already written extraordinary chapters in your story. To live with bold expectation is to trust the creative power of God. It is to know that the universe itself conspires with the faithful to bring about what has been divinely ordained. It is the recognition that prayer is not a request alone, but a declaration of readiness to receive the goodness of God. The expectant heart does not simply hope for blessing, it welcomes it, walks toward it, and embraces it as already being arranged even before it manifests. There is also resilience born from bold expectation. For the path of faith is never without obstacles. There will be moments when doors remain closed longer than expected, when setbacks seem insurmountable, when the world conspires to whisper, "Give up." But the heart that lives in bold expectation is undeterred. It knows that the delay is not denial. It knows that the challenge is not the end. It knows that every test is an opportunity for growth. Every trial a stepping stone, every obstacle a setup for triumph. Bold expectation shapes perspective. It teaches the believer to see the invisible, to anticipate the possible, to recognize the promise in the making. It transforms waiting into preparation, difficulty into opportunity, doubt into faith. It trains the heart to scan the horizon not for fear, but for hope. To listen not for complaint, but for the whispers of God's guidance, to move not with hesitation, but with confidence. There is beauty in living with bold expectation. The world looks different through the eyes of the expectant. Mountains shrink, oceans part. Barriers become doorways. What once seemed impossible becomes inevitable. Life takes on a sense of purpose, a sense of wonder, a sense of joy, because every moment is filled with the possibility of blessing. And the soul, tuned to this frequency, begins to recognize the orchestration of God in ways that astonish and delight. Living with bold expectation is not blind optimism. It is rooted in truth. It is grounded in the promises of God, the faithfulness of His Word, and the experience of His past provision. It is the boldness to act not on whimsy, but on the certainty that the Creator who has never failed will not fail now. It is a confidence that the unseen is real, that the hoped for is coming, that the doors God opens are already lined with His favor. Beloved, bold expectation invites action. It is not enough to hope quietly in the corner of your soul. You must move, you must reach, you must step forward in faith. You must open your hands to receive, your eyes to see, and your feet to walk the path God has prepared. It is a living, breathing faith that refuses to be passive, a faith that transforms anticipation into reality. There is also an element of gratitude in bold expectation. For the expectant heart recognizes that every step, every blessing, every open door is the gift of God. Gratitude heightens awareness, sharpens perception, and opens the soul to receive more than it ever imagined. To live with bold expectation is to live in a posture of thanksgiving, acknowledging that the best is not behind you but ahead, and that God's goodness is ever present, ever ready, ever flowing. Living with bold expectation is contagious. The energy of hope, the fire of faith, the anticipation of blessing, it radiates from the soul and touches others. It inspires, encourages, and uplifts. It shows the world that life is not a series of random events, but a sacred journey guided by a faithful God. It reminds us that we are not passive observers, but active participants in a story written by the hand of the Almighty. There will be moments when fear whispers, when doubt knocks, when the world's limitations press against your hope. And yet the heart that lives with bold expectation presses on undeterred. It listens to the voice of God, not the clamor of the crowd. It sees the invisible hand moving behind the curtain. It walks boldly toward the blessing, even when the path is unclear. Beloved, to live with bold expectation is to embrace life as a gift, a canvas for God's glory, a stage for miracles. It is to refuse to settle for anything less than what He has promised. It is to walk in confidence, to speak words of faith, to act in alignment with destiny, and to open your heart fully to the blessings already being prepared. And oh, what a magnificent way to live! A life of bold expectation transforms waiting into anticipation, challenge into opportunity, and faith into tangible, visible, abundant reality. It is the life that rises with the sun and stretches toward every possibility. The life that refuses to bow to fear. The life that walks boldly, fully, and gratefully into the promises of God. Yes, beloved, live with bold expectation. Anticipate miracles. Embrace opportunities. Step through doors. Trust divine timing and walk with courage. For when you do, you will discover that God's blessings are not just possible, they are inevitable. They are waiting for your readiness, your faith, your courage, and your willingness to receive. And in living this way, you will experience a life richer, fuller, and more extraordinary than you ever dared to imagine.